All right, let's bring on Ben. All right, welcome. I am so excited about this. My fellow, if I don't really feel like I should be called the chief data nerd whenever you're in the when you're on the same screen with me. It's like I'm kind of like your lieutenant. You're definitely the general. How are you doing today, Ben? You're on mute. Still can't hear you.
There we go. How about that?
Here we go. All
All right,
right, and we're live. All right, let's
unmute
try
on
it
my end.
again.
Okay, I was saying, I love the data. I love it. It's a chance to really dive in, and not for its own sake. You've heard me say this, not for its own sake, not the numbers themselves, but before they tell us what we know to do next, what we know to stop
Mhm.
doing. That's where I get really excited. So this is going to be a blast.
Yeah, and both of us actually started out in HR and recruiting. We just kind
Mhm.
of made the switch. So for anyone that's like, oh, these two don't really know, we've been in the trenches. We know how important this data is. So I know we were really excited to partner with you this month because AI in recruiting is a very hot topic, but there's a lot of hype out there, and I want to walk away and give the audience answers to three questions. What's the real ROI on what? Let me try that one more time. What is the real ROI on AI? Where are we seeing the most efficiencies in the recruiting funnel? And most importantly, what are recruiters doing with their extra time? So, with that, let's tackle the first one. First data point.
Yeah. So where's the ROI? One of the things that we see in the
Mhm.
data are that companies who are using AI in their recruiting function in some form or fashion, the number one thing they're telling us is that they are seeing more time freed up for their teams. They're seeing hours saved. And for any of us who have been recruiters, like you just said, Trent, like goodness, some weeks you're like, just 5 minutes. I just got to breathe. Okay, this is
Right.
driving me nuts. So just a little bit of breathing room is great, but these teams are saving more time. So when a company says that they're already using AI, about 1 in 4 of them are saving about 5 hours a week per recruiter. So saving a
Hmm.
ton of time, and they're using that for other things. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. About 40% of them are saving 2 to 5 hours a week, and then the rest are saving less. But what's interesting, Trent, when you and I looked at this before, is the ones that haven't yet jumped into it, they don't think the value is there. And so companies
Right.
are like, well, that AI, that probably is all that hype you were just talking about, Trent. So maybe it's not really that valuable. But once someone begins, they start to see these other interesting ways they can use it. You might start here and say, oh, well, what about this use case and this one and this one? And it adds value every time you start adding some other things. And it gives us more time to do the more human types of work and connections and recruiting, which to me is where my joy came from typically.
No, absolutely, and it was really interesting to me. So you surveyed what, over 1,000 TA orgs,
Yes.
and from what I understand, you asked them, "Are you leveraging AI? Yes or no?" And then kind of asked this question. It was really interesting because there was a tipping point. Actually there were two.
Mm.
So those that are not using it, they kind of thought maybe at most, what was it, 2 to 5 hours is probably how much they would say. But I kind of read that like they were shooting blind. They were just kind of throwing a number out there. But for those that actually are using AI, it was almost double once you got to five or more. So that's kind of one tipping point. But the other is whenever you look at those that are not using it, they were actually higher in the saving 1 to 2 hours and then 2 to 5.
Yeah.
So it seemed like those that are actually using AI, they're kind of looking at it going, look, if we can't save our recruiters at least 5 hours a week, that's not the tool for my organization. I thought that was pretty poignant.
That glass is half empty to them, Trent. The glass is
Right.
half empty, or it's a quarter empty. Like they're like not really believing it. So that's the thing that
Hmm.
we've got to. This is one of those things where you can't just wait and see. At this point, you got to give it a shot. And again, there's lots of low risk areas. I'm not saying go out there and do wild and crazy things and freak your internal counsel out or freak out your IT team. No, but there's some ways we can do this that are going to allow us to be low risk and high value, high ROI. Like I said, you're pouring more time back into the human connections with people and spending time with candidates and those things that all of us get excited about and candidates
Hmm.
get excited about. But right now, we're just too darn busy to actually do that.
Yeah, it is, and recruiting is a very process driven, the current state, very process driven. Especially if you're internal, there's all of these checks and balances, and really the great recruiters that I have loved working alongside and managing, they wanted to really be that strategic counsel for all things talent for
Mhm.
their internal client, but they were always bogged down by move this piece of paper here or did you check this? So is that kind of setting the scene for where's that tipping point? Where people are actually leveraging AI? What are they seeing the benefits? So if you're saving 5 hours per recruiter, you know what their hourly rate is. So as a leader, you need to sell this to the C-suite. That's a very easy calculation to do. I've got 20 recruiters, I'm saving 100 hours a week, and average cost is this much. Hey, C suite, if you want me to level up the current team that I have, because most are not adding additional FTEs to recruiting, let's just kind of call a spade a spade. This is a great way that you can actually add some dollar value to the organization by saving 5 hours per recruiter per week. So, just a little plug because I don't know about you, but a lot of times at conferences, I get asked, like, how do I sell this to the C-suite? And I always want to make sure that anytime we're going through data, I want to say, okay, this is how you position it with the C-suite,
Yes.
because sometimes we get in our own little recruiter language and forget that not everyone is bilingual in recruiterese. So, all right, so now we've got our tipping point. Let's get into, and this one really surprised me. I shared this with you when you gave me the deck. I totally did not see this coming. So you asked, where in the recruiting funnel do recruiters see the most efficiency gains as a result of AI? And the top two were,
Number one, screening and assessing candidates. So trying to filter through that big old pile of people and figure out the right
mhm,
ones. We just heard talk about resumes in that last segment, and like getting through all those resumes is a chore. You and I both know
yeah,
that. And then number
mhm,
two was matching candidates to jobs. So are we slotting Trent against the job that's the best fit for his skills, his strengths, his abilities, his experience, all those things. So those are the first two areas where we saw the most uptake there. And again, you and I talked about this before about how I guess I said a minute ago, low risk. Like that feels high risk to do the
it
screening and assessing
really
of candidates.
does.
That feels like the scariest place. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you that when we asked employers in the data, what is your biggest frustration right now? Again, over
Mhm,
1,000 different leaders out there, just like all of you in the world of TA, right? They said the hardest thing for us isn't branding. The hardest thing for
mhm,
us right now isn't being able to attract candidates. The hardest thing is how do we filter through all these people and find the best and most suitable candidate for the job? And that's why so much of that time is spent there. I know you've seen this post like I have. Someone posts a job these days. It's like we had to close it in 24 hours because we had 1,000 applicants. And what do we
right.
do with those people? We can't look at all those. How do we even consider that? And so they'll
Mhm,
look at the first 20 resumes and try to find someone in there because they can't look at everybody. And so if AI
yeah.
helps you look at and consider all 1,000 like that and figure out who are the 20 to continue filtering by instead of just looking at 20 manually, that's our opportunity again to get to that. Let's get to that layer of connection. Let's get to that layer of consideration versus just filtering out. Let's try to screen in some of those good people who are in that mix that we can't see because we're just bogged down, busy, and
Mhm.
don't have the free time.
And see, I would have put money that it would have been on sourcing and finding and engaging qualified candidates. But, kind of listening to you and thinking back over the conversations that I have with practitioners, if looking at the funnel, that, to your point, that's where the stress is. So it makes sense if AI is going to help us where we're stressed now. We don't have any problems at the top of the funnel. So, thank God I didn't bet because I would have lost money on that one, right? But,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you and I have both worked though in companies where you can post a job and you know you're going to get plenty of applications for that, right?
Mhm.
Maybe an accountant or something like that. But we've also had roles where you're like, okay, listen, I got to get creative because this person, there's like one that exists, or I've got to go find a handful who are willing to do this thing. I remember you telling me years ago you had a job and you're like, this is basically working on the surface of the sun. Who's interested in doing this job? Because you had to be so transparent because it was a really tough environment and you had to
Yeah.
do something to kind of appeal to someone who wanted a challenge and find that person who's willing to do that. So the same
Mhm.
sort of thing there. Some of those exist, but a lot of other ones, especially right now in the environment we're in, you can post a job and get quite a few people in. The hard part is that bottleneck is how do I get to the right one?
Yeah. Yeah. Mine was a poultry lender. So I had been in banking for a while by the time I got this position. I'm like, a chicken lender? Like, where do I even aren't looking for this, you know. So yeah, and this was before Google and Boolean search strings were a big sexy thing in recruiting. You know, I had phone books in my cube, and that's how I would actually source. So that's how old I am. Good times though. I enjoyed it. It
Anybody needs
was
to borrow a
fun.
chicken,
All right.
Trent, your guy. There you go.
Yeah. 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 I'll have to tell you the story off camera. This is not suitable for LinkedIn, but it
Oh
was.
goodness.
All right, so we have talked about the time saves. We talked about where are they seeing the most efficiency, and I would have lost money on the second question if I put a bet. This next segment, this really kind of warmed my soul. Where are recruiters spending the extra time?
Taking naps. No, they're actually
That's probably what hiring managers think.
they're
So,
hoping like please, please, please. No.
right.
So we asked this logic set of logic questions. So are you using AI? Yes. Saving you time? Yes. What are you doing with that time? So the number one
Mhm.
answer was we're spending more time interacting with key candidates in person and virtually, just spending more time building the human connection. Second up, they're spending more time on business metrics, proving the value of the work that they're doing back to the business and showing the impact of everything they're churning away at, which I love. They're spending more time on
Mhm.
communications, more time on hiring manager relationships, stakeholders, all those sorts of things. And so to me, that's exciting because all of us have heard that same phrase, Trent. It says, "Oh, don't worry, AI will do all these things so you can be more strategic." You're like, what the heck does that mean? Well, this
Right.
tells us right here. This tells us in the
Mhm.
data more time building relationships with candidates, showing them that we want them to work here, really selling it because it's a two-way street. It's not just a
Mhm.
one-way, do you want to work here? But we've got to actually sell them that this is the right opportunity for them. And more time proving to the business, listen, we're not just filling these jobs over here. I know you see Recs closed and think that's value, but the real value is those people you needed to launch that new line of business, we've slotted them in. They're here actually hired early. They're ready to go. Are you ready?
Right.
That's an
Yeah.
exciting place to be.
It is. And, you know, it's funny. There was a stat, I can't remember where it was from, but it cited that candidates, one of the biggest complaints that they have is, I think it was something like 53 or 56% of them said that they were placed in the wrong job or it wasn't a job fit. And that just kind of blows my mind. But again, whenever I look at a very process ridden organization, it makes sense. You're just trying to get the candidate and get that requisition closed. Now with AI, and can we, let me just say the irony that it takes machines entering into a human process to give us more time to focus on the human. Like that's rich, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if I had to look at a period of time to actually get into recruiting, this would be the perfect time for me because I am not a process guy. I will jack up a process quicker than anyone. But if I've got kind of my AI handling that kind of stuff and let me really focus in on the interview. But also think about the interview. It's not, hey Ben, do you have 4 years of React experience? My AI has already qualified you for the basic minimum qualifications. I'm getting in and I can say, what have you done with React? What was the project? And I can actually analyze like the soft skills and the things that are going to be necessary for you to be successful on that project. So I am here for it. I am excited. And I am really hoping that this information helps all of the participants watching understand that this is not hype. There is some real value there. Now, before we close out, there was another little piece that you shared with me. I want to put you on the spot. You talked about where candidates really like AI in the process. Do you remember what you told me? Because I love the answer.
Yeah, just candidates want the companies to use AI to help match them to jobs, which to me is the best headline out there because we keep hearing
Mhm.
candidates hate it, stay away from it, they don't like it, you're going to damage your reputation. And in some cases, yes, if you're using AI to keep people at arm's length instead of how do I
Mhm.
know you better so I can serve you better, then sure, you're going to end up with this negative perception. But cancer saying number one answer when we said, are you comfortable with employers using AI? The number one answer was if it's helping match me to a job that fits my skills, absolutely. And so going back earlier, we talked about employers are using it. That's the number one value area for employers too. And
Mhm.
so I think that's an incredible opportunity to really connect the dots there and help candidates find opportunities that are a great fit for them. Just like you and I, again, have had to, hey, you know what? You applied this job. Let me tell you this other one. See if you're
Yeah.
interested in that. That sort of human sort of connection there. I think that's the biggest opportunity for us because in the perfect world, we'd be able to do that for every candidate. we're dang busy. Ain't got time for
Hmm.
some of those things. And so if it's helping us to slot them into the right ones, it speeds that up and helps make sure they're on the right assembly line, the right process, Trent, so they get off at the right
Hmm.
job versus getting off the wrong stop. Whatever, I'm mixing all these metaphors, assembly lines and trains and everything else. But essentially, we're trying to get them there. And as you said, if the tools are helping us do that better in a more connected way, that's the best of all worlds.
I agree. I agree. Well, I have, we could talk about this for probably the rest of the day, but just as a reminder, if you want to really dig into all of the data, we definitely offer this. Again, it's free. It's free. iCIMS.com, go to resources, go to insights and research, and you'll see the most recent report out there. Also, make sure that you subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter. We're going to publish twice a month, and one of them will always be breaking down our August Insights report. We'll give you a video because some people don't like to read data, they like to hear it. So we'll give you both options. But Ben, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on and helping us with this vital topic.
Absolutely. Thankful to be here, Trent. Have a good one.
Awesome. All right. Well, Danielle, I will kick it back to you and Mike.